Hello, friends. How are you? How's things? How's life? How's your world? You should let me know. You should tell me about it. Let me know in the comments. We have a question from our friend California Chris. I thought this was an interesting question because it really made me stop and think for quite a while. The question is very simple. What was your first film you saw in a theater? Do you remember it? And then he talks about his was Star Wars, which is, a whole big thing, a whole big story. Really cool story. You should go check it out. I was born in '79, so Star Wars was not Star Wars. I had to really think about this because my initial reaction was something in the '90s, something in my teenage years, but that wasn't true. The first movie that I have any recollection of seeing in theaters was E.T. When did E.T. come out? I should have looked this up. My family, we didn't do that kind of stuff. Extra. 82? Came out in 82? So I was 3 years old when I saw that? I guess so. I have vague memories of seeing that movie in theaters. I have a memory of my mom crying. I don't know at what scene she was crying, but I can remember patting her and telling her, "It'll be okay, Mommy." I remember that. I have a vivid memory of that. But from there to the next movie I remember seeing is probably like 10 years. I honestly can't think of 80s movies that I went to see in the theater. We just weren't that kind of family. Like, my dad was a school teacher. My mom worked sometimes, but not always. So money was always tight. Like, we just didn't we weren't an eat out family. We didn't go see the movies. We didn't do stuff like that. I'm sure that I probably went to see some movies with friends, maybe something like Ghostbusters or something, but I don't have memories of those things. The next movie I have memories of seeing, I couldn't even tell you what the movie was. I went with my mom's friend. She was this older lady that she was my mom's age, and she had a Ferrari, which I thought was awesome, and she took me to the movies and we watched something. And I have no recollection of what that was, but I was probably like 12-ish, somewhere around there. And I had a really good time with that. No clue. Star Wars, until I was probably later in my not later in my teenage years. I was probably 15 when I got to see like the theatrical cut of Star Wars. So 94-ish. Prior to that, I'd only ever seen made-for-TV edits of everything. Like I have a huge fondness for Star Wars. I have a huge fondness for Indiana Jones. Huge fondness for like lots of those weird kind of Romancing the Stone. Was that the one with the like action adventure movies? I have a huge fondness for them, but I only ever saw I only ever saw TV edits. So the first time I got to see Star Wars in the theater was special edition. There has to have been other movies in there, but I don't know why I would have seen who would have taken me to see them. Maybe my aunt took me to some movies or something like that because she did more activities like that with us. But yeah, that wasn't my, those kinds of things were reserved for like I'd go to a friend's house and a friend who, when I was like, say, under 10 years old. So in the 80s, I had friends whose parents had VHS, things. Those things were extremely expensive. It was something we just simply did not have. I couldn't tell you when we got our first VHS player. It was maybe in the 90s. So I was double digits by that point. But I can remember going to friends' houses and putting in tapes of movies that I've wanted to see or whatever. So yeah, like the interesting thing is I grew up wanting to make movies. I've always had a passion for filmmaking. I can remember watching like the series where they would do like show behind the scenes stuff and how they shot stuff from like the 80s on. Like anytime those were on, I watched all of those sorts of things. I've always loved film, but it's going to the theater even now, even in my adult age when I could afford it, it still was not a big part of my life. Um, I obviously went to the theater and saw movies, but maybe like once or twice a year kind of thing. It was definitely not a regular thing. I have friends and even my kids go see way more movies than I've ever seen in the theater. Oh, I tell you what, I do remember seeing some movies in the theaters as a kid, and it was because my I don't know what you would call it. The school after fourth grade, we had a school that was fifth and sixth grade, so like an intermediate school or something like that. And then we had junior high and seventh and eighth grade. Those schools were both kind of in the downtown area of Fairmont. And we had a theater downtown that was like an old playhouse that was converted into a movie theater. And I loved that place. It was this weird, old, creepy building. The bathrooms were like in this sub basement down old marble stairs, and there was like prison gates to block you from going, into the next building or whatever. Like this weird old building that they showed movies in. And as a special prize, like every maybe twice a year or something like that, for getting good grades for each semester or 9 weeks or something, as a reward, we would often walk to the movie theater and see a movie. And so I do have memories of going to see things like The Land Before Time, or they were usually cartoon type movies. I do have memories of walking there and seeing movies. I could not tell you what movies we saw. The Land Before Time, I think that was out in the 90s. I don't even know. So I have no clue what it would have been. And honestly, the thrill of going to the movies was probably more important to me at that point than whatever it was we watched. But I do have recollections of that. And yeah, outside of that, not a big part of my life. I don't even know that it's been a big part of my kids' life. Star Wars, my oldest daughter has probably some stories about Star Wars that she could tell you, because it was something that we bonded over, and I took her to see the new trilogy and stuff. I busted her out of school one day to see one of the new movies, and she was really worried that something bad had happened, because I was like, "We gotta go, kid. We gotta go." And she's like, "What's wrong, Daddy? What's wrong?" And once we got outside, I was like, "We gotta go see Star Wars." And she was just like, "What the heck?" So stuff like that. But that was not my childhood. So it was a good question though. What was your first movie? Do you have a movie like as young as I was? I'm assuming that we saw E.T. the year it came out, which means I would have been 3 years old, and I do remember it. That's probably one of my earliest memories, because I honestly don't have a whole lot of childhood memory. Like there's huge holes, and yeah, I'd love to know what you saw. What's your story? First movie you saw in the theaters, and were theaters a big part of your life growing up? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching. While you're down there, please like the video. If you're new here, please subscribe. I'm trying to get back to 25,000 subscribers. We're getting there. Like, it's slow, but we're getting there. And I'd love to continue that climb, because I've been there before. Let's do it. I appreciate your help. I'll see you tomorrow. Today's 1,000 plus little things happy, successful people do differently. We are learning 15 relationship truths for tough times. Number 7, a mistake is an accident. Cheating and lying are not mistakes. Ooh. They are they're intentional choices. Stop hiding behind the words mistake and sorry, and stop putting up with those who do. I mean, yes, I agree. I agree completely. Those are not mistakes. Those are, they might be mistakes to the person who makes them. Like, oh, I messed up. Yeah. And I don't have to accept that as an excuse. That's your personal legal defense. That's not I don't have to accept that as a defense. And I won't.